Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, we gather here to commemorate a very special occasion for the International Management Institute in Kolkata, which in its fourth year of existence has already earned a name for itself in its pursuit of excellence to offer this city a truly inspiring learning environment with the experience of quality education and research. Keeping up with its truly international spirit, IMI Kolkata today is all set to witness the inauguration of its first international marketing conference on emerging markets, evolving perspectives. Organized by IMI Kolkata's Center for Retail Management in collaboration with IAE, University of Tours, Auditorium, France, and the Judgement School of Management, Snyder Center for Innovation, Syracuse University, USA. Evidently, we have an eclectic mix on the stage today to mark the opening ceremony. First, we would like to extend a warm welcome to the representatives from our conference partner institutes. For this, I would like to request the very Honorable Director of IMI Kolkata, Professor Kampani, to welcome them with flowers. Dr. Tridi Majumdar. He's the Howard R. Wendell Professor of Marketing, Director of Earl B. Snyder Center for Innovation, Martin J. Whitman School of Management, Syracuse University. Dr. Stefan Burliatulajani, a Joint Director, IAET Tours, Director for International Program and Service Marketing in Europe and the Region Europe. Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to request Dr. Tridi Majumdar to welcome our chief guest, Mr. Kallu Datta, with flowers. Mr. Datta is the Chairman and Managing Director of Andrew Yule and Company. I now request Dr. Stefan Burliatulajani to welcome our guest of honor, Mr. Sandeep Kaul, with flowers. Mr. Sandeep Kaul is the Chief Executive, Personal Care Products Business, IET. Light symbolizes knowledge. Knowledge is that lasting inner wealth by which all outer achievements can be accomplished. Hence, I request all dignitaries present on stage to light the ceremonial lamp in reverence to knowledge as the greatest of all forms of wealth to mark the opening of the conference. As the torch keeps burning with the true spirit of knowledge, I would like to request a very revered Director of IMI Kolkata, Professor Arindam Bane, to deliver his welcome address. Professor Bane, a PhD from Delhi School of Economics, has been with IMI since February 1994. An expert in international finance and business, a noted academician and consultant, Professor Bane now leads IMI Kolkata with his truly inspiring vision. So, please.
Good morning, Professor Stephen, 3D Mojumdar, Mr. Kalu Doctor, Mr. Sandeep Kaur, Mr. Kampani, Mr. Shubhashish Mitra, novelist, Mr. Moni Shankar Mukhopadhyay, honored guests, researchers, media, faculty, colleagues, students, and staff of IMA. It's a great pleasure and privilege for me to welcome you to this International Marketing Conference. Special thanks are due to all for gathering here to contribute to this conference. Interestingly, this is the second conference, international conference we are organizing at IMI Kolkata. The first one we have just organized about 2 months before with the Chinese eminent research institutions. Now, when we say emerging market, evolving perspectives, we say basically the dynamics of marketing. The dimensions are different, specifically in the context of emerging markets, scenario in urban areas and scenarios in the market, which is basically the rural-driven areas. One hand, information technology is a dominating factor in understanding the evolving perspectives of the marketing. The other extreme, specifically in the rural areas, which is driven by still the local culture, jatras, puppet shows are equally important. Consider the carnivals in Brazil, in the remotest part, where the computer penetration ratios are very less than rural culture, and how multinationals are actually involved in prospering the rural culture, in driving their own products, super remotest areas are concerned. These are actually visible in India also. When you say rural marketing, perhaps the digital marketing or IT-driven marketing is not only the sole media. There are many dimensions, and I'm sure Indian companies or Indian multinationals, along with the local multinationals, are equally working and empowering the culture, rural culture in this scenario. And today is certainly a moment, and we should all enjoy. If you take a quick look around you, I'm sure you'll all agree that our business has come a long way in the last few years. Started in 2010, and as a campus of IMI Delhi, if you see our growth in terms of intakes, in terms of research output, in terms of other facets, IMI is quite growth, and in all these areas are quite significant. Some of the documents, I'm sure my colleagues will be sharing with you how we have actually prospered since 2010. You are all most welcome to stay here, because if you find any problems in your accommodations or any other things, we'll welcome to encourage those issues, and I'm sure we will try to resolve that issues. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. As an extension of the welcome speech, I now invite Professor Stefan Bogliatti-Luciani from University of Toulouse to say a few words.
Thank you. Dear ladies, dear sir, it's a great pleasure for me to be with you today. First of all, I want to thank Professor Bani and Professor Mitra for this opportunity to be with you here. It's a great honor and a great pleasure to be present for this conference. I'd like to thank to Professor Banerjee for the organization of this today. I know she is very stressed, but I'm sure everything will be fine, don't worry. You have worked a lot with the administrative and research staff, and everything will be fine. Emerging markets, evolving perspectives. What an interesting topic for conference research. All the Indian markets are growing up very rapidly, more than 4% of GDP growth. India needs to manage an economic revolution. New generation of markets appears: healthcare, education, with e-learning, transport, and many more. All these markets need investments and need time to develop. But there is an important market who can go rapidly and can be at the same time with a great return and invest and very useful for Indian citizens. This market is the digital one. In a few minutes, let me focus on some points, main points of this market. The first one is infrastructure. Of course, digital markets need good telecom infrastructures. And this point is expensive and need time. But things are growing very rapidly. Remember, 2 or 3 years ago, which speed did you have for your internet access? Were you surfing in 3G? In only 2 or 3 years, internet speed was going up very rapidly. Mobile connection was the next challenge to increase internet usage. Indian telecom providers propose good mobile connection in 3G for an acceptable price. And this price is slowly decreasing. Internet is more and more popular. Of course, with 10 to 13% of users in India, internet is still a confidential tool. But we need to analyze internet rate penetration by population age. Look at your students at this amphitheater. Look at your colleague. How many smartphones? How many laptops? In middle class, internet is spreading rapidly, and all the economy can win some opportunities. The second point about mobile is about mobile device. The Indian technology firms are more and more competitive. You are using a Samsung or an iPhone, but maybe now you are looking for a Macromax device with an increasing interest. National Indian production, it's a great idea to answer to national demand. You have developed your own smartphone and tablets brand when Europe and French government spend millions of euros to give some tablets to the students. iPad tablet, of course. We are not able to choose our national brand. On technological device, the gap is not important between Europe and India. Your national brands are competitive with good quality. And don't imagine that Indians' usage are late. This is my first point. Internet usage. Last week, in Delhi airport, I was very surprised to see a huge video screen, many different flat screens side to side. On each one of these screens, one product, one price, one QR code. You have just need to scan it, to choose the color, to pay with your Visa card, and the product will be delivered directly at home. My phone will be transformed in a shop, traveling with me. This technology appears just some months ago in France and at the same time in India. On internet, usage adoption are growing rapidly. How many of you are using TripAdvisor, Shazam, iTunes? You tweet, you Snapchat, like all the users worldwide. The researchers speak about acculturation of internet. That means you are integrating a specific digital culture in addition to your own culture. You are Indian, but when you surf on internet, you are internet citizen. This culture is spreading very rapidly. Mobile service is one of the new markets. Only 2 variables are important for the acceptance: perception of usefulness and easy of use. With these 2 points, you can propose many solutions and create a service industry. On internet, it's so easy to buy a flight ticket, to download music, sometimes legally, sometimes not, but it's easy. To book an hotel, to save online personal data. The internet services are not expensive in money, they are expensive in ideas. Anticipation of consumer needs is a keyword. How many apps did you download on your smartphone? You have just kept the useful ones and the easiest to use. The mobile service can be created easily on internet. Taxi booking, touristic information, travel advices, e-banking, e-health, large opportunities are open to you. India is well known for the quality of this computing engineer and for the quality of the students in management. It's now time they meet all together. This is a challenge for the business school. Developing digital marketing programs with engineers and managers at the same place during the same course. It will be a great opportunity. In the past year, India was subcontractor for developing software. It's now time to use your strong competencies for yourself and create some additive value. India needs to imagine the future web service for India, but not only. 1 billion users are living in BRICS countries. Partnership with Brazil, China, Russia can open huge markets. The project of internet cables managed by BRICS opened a new step in internet governance. This summer in Fortaleza in Brazil, a delegation from BRICS had decided to start a cooperation program to develop an alternative vision of the web, independent from United States and Europe. India, with these strong competencies, will have an important role to play on these new markets. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Now, in the same light, I request Professor Aditya Majumdar of Syracuse University to share his thoughts.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here in the midst of such great talents and tremendous amount of pooled knowledge that we have. And throughout the conference, we're going to hear people with background and skills talk about emerging markets and evolving perspective. And I'm truly honored and I feel very blessed to be here. I want to thank the organizers. I know how hard you have worked to put it together, and let's give them a hand. And to such a wonderful job to get us all here, and wish them the best. Now, when I got the topic on emerging markets and evolving perspectives, a lot of times when we prepare presentations on topics such as this, we seem to look at emerging markets as an area for demand. Every time we study India or we study China, we look at the numbers, we look at the revenue potentials, 300 middle class are growing demand in that sector. But I think we need to go a little bit beyond that. We need to study markets based on their diversity and their uniqueness. So when you look at hospitality industry, for example, you see the level of Indianness they maintain and still grow across the world. When you look at entertainment as another area, they maintain their uniqueness and still emerge in those markets. So when you study emerging markets, I think what we need to do is maintain the uniqueness, maintain the strength, and then learn from perspectives elsewhere that we have, and then apply it there. And that will kind of keep the strength and the uniqueness of the Indian market and the Indian specialty, and then grow from there. Rather than simply bring in perspectives from the West and apply it, which is not likely to work. And a lot of us here will attest to that particular context. About this, for the students that are here, it's a very similar thing that you consider yourself as provider of knowledge in the future and skills in the future to the industry. So you try to grow from your strengths and apply yourself in the area that you really like to work and really like to feel that you are empowered in those areas, and then grow from there rather than simply chasing career and chasing whatever money or fame and other things. Again, I'm truly honored to be here, and I wish all the success for this program and for this conference as a whole. And thank you again. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor. Today we have amongst us Sri Kallol Datta as the chief guest for the occasion. Sri Datta is the chairman and managing director of Auditorium Company. A mechanical engineer with master degree in industrial engineering, Sri Datta started his career with Philips India Limited and thereafter served as general manager in TIL and managing director of WEBFIL Limited, respectively, in his pre-Angio phase. Sri Datta was the recipient of Scope Excellence Award for Turnaround category for Outstanding Contribution to the Public Sector Management 2008-9, presented by Dr. Manmohan Singh, the then Honorable Prime Minister of India. He also received awards like Turnaround BRPSC Award 2011 and BRPSC and MOU Excellence Award for 2009 and 10. Sri Datta was the president of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry from 2012 to 14. We now request Mr. Datta to address the audience.
Good morning. Well, I'm the more respect about this program. Mr. Mohit, good morning. Mr. Stephen, Mr. Kaur, Mr. Majumdar, Mr. Kampani, all professors sitting here, and most importantly, my student friends. I don't know anything about marketing, I must confess. But what I have learned in my career spanning about 30 years, I can share that with you. What you read is, I have read a little bit of marketing. I've gone through the pass out the marketing paper, reading the quota. That is the main, but everybody still, I think that is still valid. And I believe in one thing. You have to always stick to the basics. So don't go out to the basics. Don't try to do something very extraordinary to start with. If you stick to the basics, I will get the result. You see, in Kotler or anywhere, whatever is taught in this institute, most of the time they talk about the FMCG product. If we look at it. But is it all? How much in the Indian economy are dependent on the FMCG product? As you know, in our country's GDP, who's contribute to maximum? It is the service sector. Service sector contribution is about 60%. Then you come to the manufacturing. Manufacturing, when you take, it is about 17–18%, and agriculture. So what about this marketing of these services and the manufactured product? I'm coming from an industry, basically, who produces this capital goods. Like you are a buyer, this RPG group is a big buyer of the capital goods for their power stations. How to market your product? You are producing boilers, you are producing turbines, you are producing generators, you are producing transformers. How do you market it? Very, very important. And many of you will get into that line. When you go there, then what do you do? But you might think that oh my God, I have learned everything in the Kotler, what is that? Basically on this FMCG. I don't know whether now it is being taught or not how to handle the capital goods market. I don't know. Is it taught? Is there a subject? No? Industrial marketing is there. But what is happening in India, I can give some example and try to correlate with the piece of the market and what you call it, like your product, pricing, placement, promotions. These are 4 P's. I suppose that there are any other P I am living here. Am I living any other P's? Huh? There are 4 P's are there? Okay, right. So I start with the first P as the product. I will just touch upon, okay? I'm not getting into make you bored again. It is not a class lecture. So product, how do you select a product? When you get into the industry, you will see that your product is already there. Okay, you have to sell it. What do? Do you have any opportunity to select the product for yourself? Probably not. Okay, then you have to, what do you do with this P? You leave it behind or you carry it along with you? I have to carry it with you, right? How do you do that? That is very important. But I think this P product, when you take and look at your product and just compare with the competitor, know about the product. It's very, very important. You have to know detail about the product. You have to get inside of the product and try to find out what is the USP of that product. What is the why is it everybody is making a transformer? Okay, everybody is making suppose an lathe machine. So then why the people will buy your product? They can go to X, they can go to Z, they can go to M, anywhere they can go. So it is important to know in the product area that what is the uniqueness of your product? What is your uniqueness? If it is not unique, then talk to the R&D department and tell them that, okay, this product has this features, this product has this feature, is my computer's product I'm talking about. So why don't you introduce all this in your product and make it exclusive, make it a very demanding product. That's why probably you handle the product scenario. And then coming to the pricing, and pricing is and India, very, very price sensitive market. Very, very price sensitive market. Because everybody wants the best product of they want to buy gold at the price of what with art. That is the biggest problem we have in this country. So you have to really work it out in such a way that to really help your R&D department to get into your, as we call it, your value engineering side. To help the value engineering side to see that how they can cut the cost. And it has to come from your input. Okay, it is a duty of the engineers, duty of the R&D department to handle that. But you have a lot to contribute as a marketing guy. So a lot to contribute with that. And that is only possible if you really keep your eyes and ears open and keep on researching on your competitors' product. It's very, very important. Very, very important. I'm overemphasizing that you not only know your product, you must know your competitor product to make it a success. Then coming to this, another P, how do you promote your product? Okay, now is a lot of digitization is happening, digital marketing. They will talk about the experts on that. So one is certainly you have to take a digitized version method. You have to look for the exhibitions where your specific products are being exhibited, or they take part of all those exhibitions. Then go to the call for the seminars. You find out your target audience, who could be your target audience, call them, have a lecture with them, have a discussion with them, have a conference with them, and talk about your product. That is basically here, the promotion doesn't mean, very rarely you see that a company who is producing a lathe machine or a transformer giving a big advertisement. Even if you see some advertisement for them, those companies, you be least assured that somebody has influenced the managing director or somebody with our marketing guys to put an advertisement on this souvenirs. They will not see that on a regular basis. Those type of advertisements are coming in. So no promotion. Does it mean there is no promotion? No, there is a lot of promotion goes on. There is a tremendous amount of interaction with the customer is required. You have to go continuously visit the customer. Basically, you have to be nagging with the product. Go and nag with him. Talk about the product. Understand his requirement. Then only you can really promote your product to your customer. And then the prior placement things comes, and here in the placement it is a little bit of tricky. In India, the biggest buyer in India is the government departments. They were all said and done. Till today, the government buys the maximum. Then, how do you sell it to them? Is basically you have to start working with them when the freezes their specification. You have to go to them. You have to find out those 5 people who are freezing the specification for tendering. And you have to make sure, and just a trick I'm talking about, that you put some specification in that, some qualification criteria in those tenders where your competitor become less. Okay, competition become less. There are a lot of people will not qualify. That is, you will see that in a lot of tenders. That is, you will see when you get into that we don't have the requisite requirements. We don't qualify for this tender. But what is doing your competitor is going there. They're freezing the specification and qualification criteria such that you don't fit it. So it is what I'm trying to tell you, that 2 areas you have to continuously work. It is your competitor's product. You have to know your competitions. First of all, you have to know your product. Second thing is you have to know the competition. And third thing is that you have to be very, very closely monitor your customers. You have to be with him on a regular basis. You become his friend. Where you have to, and then the success will come. Otherwise, not. They will not buy a product looking at this from your face or something like that. And how to do that? You see, there's a very important thing downside is after sales. It is true for any industry, for anything, after sales service. You people will get into, a lot of people will, nowadays I've seen after doing their PS, I know some students have passed out from this institute and gone to the banking industry. But all banks give the same facilities, same interest, price is same, product is same. Then why a customer you will give your business? You can get 1, 2 business or 100 business by your personal connections. You can insist that, okay, you just open, I'm working here, that please open your account in my bank. Then how, but is that end? That will frustrate you. After some time, there is no customer. You'll find there no customer. A lot of young boys, girls getting into the banks and getting frustrated. They don't want to get big job designation, vice president, wealth management, this and that, and I see that frustrated. They will come and tell Mr. Tata, why don't you open an account? I said, I have an account by HSBC. It's a long word. Why? How can I shift to the Axis Bank? That is exactly is happening. So what is important here, that after sales, if somebody opens an account, how good you are giving a support to him, how good you are taking care of his requirements, how good you remain connected with that gentleman, with that account on a regular basis. See that what is exactly is happening. And even if he don't require, okay, I just give him a call every day, sir, everything is fine. Are you okay? Can I help you do something? And that interpersonal relation is very, very important. But it is true for this capital goods market also. You have to be with the regular in touch of the users. Very importantly, users. Is the participant buys and they give it to the users. And users ultimately recommends that what to buy. So we have to be with the users. You have to know the users and you have to be with them. I think that is a major part that is true not only for your capital goods, but that is for all services. That is very, very important. And now global market is changing. The Indian market has totally shifted towards your rural marketing. That is very important. I have seen 1 or 2 presentations by the people. There's a lot of work is going on branding for this, and branding when it comes to the FMCG, it is very easy to talk, but when the branding comes to your capital goods or services, it becomes very, very difficult. So branding in that case become the company's branding of the company, the name of the company, it becomes important. So you have to be visible always, where your company should be taken as considered to be as one of the best employer or something like that. That gives a huge amount of impact on the society, impact on the buyers. So we have to keep all this in mind. I would have loved to sit here and to listen to these experts on their talk, but What I've said, I may be wrong, all right, I'm not getting into it, but is I'm talk from my experience only. Thank you very much for calling me.
Thank you, Mr. Datta. That was really inspiring. We now request our guest of honor, Mr. Sandeep Kaul, for his keynote address. Mr. Sandeep Kaul, Chief Executive, Personal Care Products Business, ITC, is an alumni of IIM Ahmedabad, who began his career as an area sales manager with ITC some 25 years back. In the year 1999, he was appointed as Head of Consumer Insight Function, and 2002, he was entrusted with the responsibility of conceptualizing and building the personal care business from ground up. Having worked in various strategic marketing positions for ITC, today he leads the India's premier FMCG company with an enduring passion and a signature zeal. With his leadership, the personal care business has been recognized as a leading innovator, as Fiyama Devils and Vival Products having won the coveted Product of the Year award multiple times since 2010. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a Calcuttan by choice and by heart, Mr. Sandeep Kaul, with his keynote address.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I think it's a true honor and privilege to be seated alongside such luminaries, eminent guests. Thank you, Professor Ranik, for having me here to speak to your students. Professor Mazumdar, Professor Stefan, Mr. Datta. Really enjoyable listening to you, Mr. Kampani. I think very, very distinguished members of the audience here. Thank you once again. On this occasion of the theme of this conference, where we are convened to discuss traditional thinking, practices on the ideas of emerging markets, evolving perspectives. I don't claim to have original thinking on the subject, but hopefully I'll be able to give some examples of original practices. I will restrict myself to my own notions and understanding of the concepts and the context relating to these evolving perspectives. I think we touched upon it briefly when we said that we don't no longer look at emerging markets only as centers of demand, but I think their influence and impact on the global economy is far more widespread than that. Due to my training as a marketing and brand marketing professional, I guess most of my observations are through the lens of the consumer and dwell on the process of value creation. The theme that I would like to touch upon in this context is what I refer internally to, and we sometimes talk about, and I'll explain as we go along, is the magic of 3 I's. And the first I that we speak about, or I speak about here, is innovation. The word innovation and the practice of it is no longer an innovation. It is well documented, well talked about. Everybody talks about it. Every 10 minutes we speak about it. Every lecture is punctured with the intonation of innovation. But what I'm going to talk about is a little different here. And here in this context, when I mean it's without getting into technical or academic definitions of innovation, it's a process, right? Innovation that I speak about in this broadest context is not about a product, but about a process. It's about creativity, it's about imagination, it's about the power to solve a consumer problem in an original manner. So keeping that aside, all of us innovate. We innovate in our daily lives, and the workplace, at homes. The biggest innovator I have observed is, in many cases, the householder. She innovates continuously. She's innovating in the morning, conjuring up dishes that satisfy sometimes her customers, which are very, very demanding children in many cases, and so on and so forth. And she does a brilliant job of it 24/7. So what innovation are we talking about? The innovation that we're talking about here in this context that I would like to speak about is is an innovation that is based in enterprise. And the challenges that we face is really about scaling up. You always have innovation centers, you have innovative people, you have innovative departments, but how do you scale up innovation as a practice where it becomes a process itself, that it is embedded into the work practice? The challenge there is, how do you make every individual think with creativity? The practice of innovation has going through a lot of debate, and there is a lot of, I would even recommend that I think I've read some very interesting texts on that, and the whole notion of scaling up innovation. That ultimately, if innovation is localized, very individual centric, then the full organization of the enterprise, and it could be a commercial enterprise, it could be a non-profit enterprise, it could be an educational enterprise. The whole challenge, I think, that faces many of us today when we try and create organizations or build organizational practices is the scaling up of innovation. So I leave that leave that concept there, and for you all to introspect and think over. In this subject, we've all heard of the famous Jugaad, right? And which is, I think the notion of Jugaad has gone far beyond the original vehicle on the streets of Uttar Pradesh, which was combined with a lot of innovation, right? And some very interesting work on even India's mission to Mars has been likened to Jugaad. Some cartoons appeared in New York Times with suitable apologies after that, referring to this whole concept of innovation and Jugaad and India and innovation. But it really refers to innovation accomplished through frugal deployment of resources. And that is where the emerging markets come in. We are not blessed with plentiful resources, so we have to manage with frugal deployment of resources. And I quote from the book Jugaad Innovation, very well written books. And in fact, they quote Theodore Roosevelt. It's who says, Jugaad innovators embody Theodore Roosevelt's statement, belief that all the resources we need are actually in the mind. So that's the first eye of innovation that I wanted to speak about. And the second eye that I want to talk about is intellectual property. Most of us, when we refer to the subject of intellectual property, immediately conjure up the world of labs, scientists, technology, drugs, rockets, and so on. However, let us also spend a minute on another aspect of intellectual property, which is trademarks, copyrights, library, trade dress. In fact, these are very, very important sources of competitive advantage and differentiation, related indelibly to the world of brands, which I have had something to do with. It is brands that drive a large portion of consumer choice, trust, preference, loyalty. Brands are legacies that often outlive the brands that outlive the products that they originally represented. And this is an asset that endures a huge advantage on the owner in generating cash flows that can sustain the original competitive advantage that came into being in the very first case. And there are many innovations, particularly in emerging markets, which really don't get captured as intellectual property. And consequently, the innovator does not have the benefit of a stream of income generation that his innovation truly deserves. This itself is an impediment in the process of innovation because the innovator does not have the benefit of his innovation. There are other operators, let me say, who can use these innovators, brand them, trademark them. People are always on the lookout to find interesting ways of capturing intellectual property. And I think it's very important that in this context of emerging markets, we always think about innovation in the context of how do we match it up with intellectual property so that innovations are protected, guarded for the benefit of the innovators. The third eye that I would like to draw your attention to, which is close to my heart and in some cases is very close to the heart of the organization also that I worked with continuously for 25 years, that is ITC, is inclusive growth. India is an emerging market, we all know that, whatever be the various defining definitions of emerging markets. The future well-being of our society is inextricably linked to the subject of inclusive growth. Ultimate growth would come when the last consumer in India has had a full nutritious meal and has some disposable income at her or his disposal to fulfill her latent desires to her exclusive satisfaction. And that is what we believe is inclusive growth. This country, this society of ours will not grow when I or you buy an extra watch or an extra car or a refrigerator. But the person at the bottom of the pyramid, there are some papers related to the bottom of the pyramid. The definition of the bottom of the pyramid itself has changed from the time when Professor Prahlad first spoke about it. But ultimately, it's about getting more and more people into the inclusive virtuous cycle of growth. An example at ITC I draw your attention to is a social and farm forestry initiative driven by research, which is innovation, clonal propagation program, generating over 1,63,000 hectares and creating cumulative employment of 73 million man days. Now, what we do is these clones are propagated into the land, and trees that are grown out of which are source of wood and pulp for the long-term competitiveness and sustainability of our paper business. So it's an example that now what I come to is the magic of the confluence of the three I's, where innovation, intellectual property, inclusive growth is all married together in creation of sustainable value chains for the benefit of the members of the value chain. It is that which becomes a virtuous cycle, earns its own revenues, earns its own profit. Profit is not a bad word, but profit that is embedded in the growth of the society itself. Many enterprises are able to harness the power of one or the other or two of the I's, but if you just imagine what is the power of the confluence of the three I's, that's when magic happens. Even the original Jugaad, if it had managed to translate into the three I's, could have been a potential powerful product, engine of development and growth. As students of marketing, management, thinkers, practitioners, do consider as you go forward how many such opportunities go a-begging. There are examples plenty: medical care, social enterprise, education, retailing, where new models are being given birth to every day. Business models, product concepts, processes. Can we combine these three I's in the context of an emerging market? And then the progressive slew of getting them branded, technologically protected, through patents, made available on a mass scale to the benefit of all people and mankind. I think that is truly transformative part of the three I's to the benefit of society. So that's what my feelings were, and I wanted to express them. I think on the context of emerging markets, I think, and evolving perspectives, I think we should all pay a little heart to how we can make the world a better place through the dint of our own efforts without necessarily compromise on our own particular developments of career and so on and so forth. So thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much to the Institute, the administration committee for having me here. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. Great to be in Calcutta with my friends and students of this institute. I think it's a great opportunity for you all to learn, develop your skills, hone your practices, and contribute back to the society in any manner that you think fit. Thank you so much.
That was really insightful. So it was a pleasure from our part. As we approach the end of this inauguration session, it is time for us to extend our token of appreciation to the dignitaries present on dais for taking time out of their busy schedule to give us an opportunity to host them. For this, I would request our director, IMI Kolkata, to do the honors. Mr. Kallol Datta. Mr. Sandeep Kaur. Professor Tridi Majumdar. Professor Stefan Burriato Johnny. Thank you, sir. So this brings us to the end of the first leg of the inauguration session. However, we believe that this is just the beginning of the 2 days of a memorable conference. While we would have our dignitaries on dais leading the stage, I would request the audience to keep seating for the most awaited panel discussion on losing intuitive judgment in data-driven marketing. Please give us 5 minutes to transform the stage for panel discussion. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello friends, just to inform you, we are all going live on Friends FM with bites from this particular conference. So just get in touch with that.
উপরের লাইটটা নিয়ে দিলে এটা ভালো আসবে না? উপরে যে লাইটটা যেটা চলছে স্ক্রিনের উপরে, এই লাইটটা রিভিউ দেওয়া মনে বেটার হবে এটা। Excuse me, sir. এখানে হেভি আসছে। দেখেন ওই লাইটটা আলো আছে একসাথে।
Hello everyone, this is to just inform you that 4 of our panelists have already arrived, but one of our panelists have got delayed because the first scheduled flight will be joining us in 5 minutes, so please hold on to your patience.
সেটা করতে পারছি ওয়াটার লেভেল ঠিক আছে, স্ট্যান্ডার্ড ওয়াটার লেভেল ঠিক আছে, না না এই যে স্ট্যান্ডার্ড লেভেল, স্ট্যান্ডার্ড ওয়াটার লেভেল ঠিক আছে, স্ট্যান্ড ঠিক আছে, একদম পারফেক্ট, ওয়াটার লেভেল একদম পারফেক্ট, কিন্তু এইখানটা একটু ঠিক আছে, এই স্ট্যান্ডার্ড লেভেল দিয়ে আমি কাজ করছি। বসিয়েছে ভুল। Full forfeit. No, over to this. Oh, wow. Yes. Why? কি হচ্ছে এটা স্ট্যান্ড এই মারটা বসে ঘুরিয়ে দিয়েছি স্ট্যান্ড এবার ঠিক আছে ওরা ঠিক লাগাতে পারে অ্যাডজাস্ট मीट का थी प्लान कैमरा लगा मीट का दिया ये तो शुरू कैमरा
No, we actually like combine.
Sorry.
now
Good morning and a warm welcome to the dignitaries on the dais, distinguished guests, and delegates of the conference, respected faculty members and administrative staff of IMI Kolkata, and my dear friends. The big data explosion is driving a shift away from rush-based decision making. Marketing in particular is feeling the pressure to embrace new data-driven customer intelligence capabilities. No wonder a strong appetite for data is one of the most sought-after qualities in new marketers. And yet it has been found that the vast majority of marketers still rely too much on intuition, while the few who do use data aggressively do the most part to do it badly. On this particular note, we would start today's panel discussion on using intuitive judgment in data-driven marketing. We have an eminent panel among us today whom we would want to welcome with stars. Mr. Mohit Kampani, President and CEO at Spencer's Retail Limited. Mr. Nilanjan Mukherjee, Head of Marketing, Personal Care Business at ITC Limited. Mr. Jimmy Kanvi, Head 91.9 Friends and Center. Mr. Aditya Shastri, Head of Film, Entertainment and B4U. Mr. Abhik Singhi, Senior Partner and Director at the Boston Consulting Group. Just to bring your notice, a detailed panel profile has already been distributed. I would now hand over the stage to Mr. Kampani, the moderator of this session.
Good morning, everybody. Delighted to be here, and thank you for inviting me here. I've been working now for about 20 years, and out of that, 11 has been in consumer goods industries and about 9 in retail. And when I saw this topic, I reflected back to when I started my career. And in fact, when I even did my master's in business administration, we used to have a computer room in the institute, and you had to leave your shoes outside and that kind of stuff. And forget big data or access to any quality data. Words such as syndicated data or data of any form or shape which came on a periodic basis was not there. And these were days of the consumer fast-moving industry boom. I'm talking about the early 90s. And today, when I think it's the era of big data, where we are inundated with data every day of our lives. When I start my day in the morning, the first set of data starts coming at about 6:30 in the morning with my tea. And yes, it comes on WhatsApp. And by the time I reach office, we've already got a lot of early data which is coming from various parts of the business. So that about 10:30, you have a pretty good idea on what's happening on the business. I was telling Nilanjan before coming here, the growth on our personal care business is 17%. And so he asked me, is that YTD? I said, we are in retail. We actually measure growth almost on a daily basis. That's the truth. And that's the kind of environment we operate in today. Versus one where 20 years back, you got to know your growth. After the month had ended, the accountants had done the books, and around 5th to 7th of next month. Forget a daily or a weekly or a fortnightly update. With this context, I must confess my limitations on this topic. I belong to a retail industry and I look at this in a particular way. But I think with this very diverse panel, and equally exciting as this panel is that 2 of them are from very, very creative industries, and they bring a very different context to this discussion, I hope, today. So there is this book by Malcolm Gladwell called Blink. I hope some of you read that book. If you haven't, I suggest you read this book. Before this, he had another bestseller. In fact, he started his career with that book called Tipping Point, which has a completely different set of lessons. And I think as students of management, you must read both the books. But essentially, what Blink talks about is the Blink versus the Think controversy, which is intuitive decision making versus analytical decision making. And his hypothesis is that ultimately you rely on your intuitive nature to take a decision, how much ever data is thrown at you in all fields. And he supports with all kind of cases and fairly logical argument. But on the other side, there is also this book and another movie called Moneyball. And if you haven't seen the movie, please see it. It's a fascinating movie about baseball. And there's this coach called Billy Beane. He used to coach the Oakland Athletics baseball team. And the context there was that he didn't have resources like the big guys. So he decided to rely on data to select emerging players. and he made a statistical model which worked wonders. And I think since then, the baseball sports era in America has seen a sea change, where data has led sports in a very, very big way. And these are two examples on the opposite end of the spectrum. I looked up some research, and I think there seem to be some consistent factors which come out of research. One is that the relative value of intuitive decision making versus analytical decision making depends a lot on the situation itself. And I think all situations cannot have either of the two. So situations or facets of business which require very, very quick decisions, and professions such as sports, for instance, which I talked about, sometimes require very quick decision making. Intuitive decision making seems to lend more to these professions and these situations. On the other hand, in sports itself, sports which require a different bent of mind, for instance, chess, you'll be better off taking more analytical decision making. And that's why today chess is such an analytical sport. And the big grandmasters spend, huge amount of time, effort, and all kinds of software to analyze their games. In business, I would say there is a more widespread acceptance that intuitive and analytical decision making are not mutually exclusive. It's not either of. And one way to look at it is that you may actually use data to test intuitions. And in fact, that's my personal outlook too. In fact, we were talking before coming in here, the stereotype of an entrepreneur is always been one of intuition. The guy who starts or gets an idea which is based on his intuition. While unfortunately the stereotype of the CEO is more one of person who is led by analytics and data. So in fact, if I can use the word, I would call an entrepreneur the cowboy of commerce, and I would use the word for a CEO as the commando of commerce. And these are very, very different decision styles. And another facet, in fact, for some of you who read this yesterday in the strategist, it came out in which comes in Business Standard. There was a little caselet about the problems organizations face as they scale up. When they're young, largely entrepreneur-driven, they're able to take decisions faster. They're more consumer-facing, so their decisions reflect what more consumers want, versus organizations who scale up. And I'm quoting from the article, so not my personal words. Army of middle managers takes over and resorts more to SOP-based decision-making, and therefore stifles the growth of the organization, which is also true. The cowboy approach, of course, is also very stereotypically associated with more creative fields and industries. So public relations, marketing, ad firms, design firms, these are not professions you would traditionally associate with very analytical decision-making. And in fact, if you look at the kind of individuals who are recruited in such vocations, they're taken more for their ideational skills, not really their research and evidence gathering kind of fields, versus somebody you would employ in a market research firm, where I think investigation certainly trumps imagination. But I think, like I said a couple of minutes back, business is not either of one of the two, and certainly marketing is not either of one of the two, and it's a mix of both of them. And what we'll do today is we will spend time with each of our panelists, and I'm going to lead them in with some comments. I've chosen comments by very leading business leaders and thinkers, and then get their perspectives on what they have been saying. So I'll start with Abik, and I'm going to use a quote which is purported to be from Albert Einstein, but it's a little iffy whether he actually said it, but I think the quote is more important. So the quote goes, "The intuitive mind is a sacred gift and the rational mind a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant, which is the rational mind, and has forgotten the gift, which is the intuitive mind. Now, like I said, this quote is attributed to Einstein. Whether he really has said it or isn't really relevant, what it strikingly describes is the current shift towards a more analytical decision-making business and society, which to my mind is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. We are surrounded by apps, devices, sensors that gather data, which is analyzed to provide us with suggestions and offers which we are more likely to accept. It is certainly a trend which is gathering more and more steam in boardrooms. From monthly reviews, now we have weekly reviews. We have everyday morning meetings when we are looking at a lot of data. However, the big popularity of big data, which is of course very, very technically sophisticated, it is a very intensive statistical approach, also has an unfortunate side effect. And I call that side effect shut up and calculate the numbers ethos, which is creeping into our professions. Rather than one which promotes more critical thinking and stimulates ideas beyond what the numbers actually mean. Question is, of course, what is the balance between the two, which is intuition and analysis. So I would say that you use analysis to verify your intuition and apply intuition to find models which can work for your business. And even when the time frame is tight, which is often used as an excuse to rely more on intuition, at least you can do quick analysis to verify the intuition. My submission today to Abhik is that both balancing intuition and analysis will boost the quality of decision making. And of course, learn to train your intuitive mind, because an untamed intuitive mind can probably be damaging. So Abhik, as a leading consumer and retail practitioner, we've had the opportunity to work over the years. What are your views and observations on this? And just to sub-context it, Abhik has led engagements across consumer and retail businesses across Asia for many years. He's also co-authored a wonderful book, which is about the opportunity in India and China. So, what are the changes you see in your clients as you've been engaging with them over the years? And the context, of course, is this intuitive versus data decision making. So when you have talked, especially to boardrooms and C-suites, what's your take on this?
Am I audible? Great. So Mohit, let me start with a quote from Einstein. And I think Einstein did say at some point of time that God doesn't play dice. And that was around the time that he was trying to come up with the theory of relativity, and there was this thing of does Heisenberg uncertainty principle go through, etc., etc., etc. So I'm actually going to come at this. So whoever actually thought of this topic, I think there is, like in a debate, a big challenge of saying, till what point you cross over. So let me put a stake in the ground. If I had to look at how businesses and business people are making decisions, whether it's related to marketing or otherwise, I think there is a much greater reliance on data. I remember a conversation with one of the leading CEOs of the country, and there was a point of view that two different people had, and he said, in this place we follow the maxim, in God we trust, everyone else brings data. The challenge that I see with that paradigm, I think, is one of the fundamental constructs that people think about this is an underlying assumption that the past is a good predictor of the future. Because most of the data that you have is the one which is related to the past. And if I look at what's happening today, things are changing at such a rapid pace. Like you said, in earlier days, you will get to know of the monthly sales probably 10 days after the sale happens, and then also with a reasonable margin of error. Now you actually have the sale end of day yesterday. But you still can't have a very good prediction on will, let's say, 17th December be the same as 16, or will it be the same as 17th December 2013, and so on. So I think that's the one thing to keep in mind, that while there is a reliance on data, there is an inherent assumption that people go ahead with that because I have more data, I will necessarily come up with a better answer. That's not true. That leads to the second point. Most of the time, so many times I have a conversation with somebody on my team and say, okay, let's say we are trying to solve an issue related to organization design, and the person would say, yes, but there is no data. And I would say, why do we say that? And say, yes, but because there are no hard numbers. So that's the second fallacy which typically ends up happening, mixing up numbers with data. Data is any piece of information which, whether Aditya sees it, or whether Nilanjan sees it, or whether I see it, we will all report it hopefully the same way. Numbers is one manifestation of that, but I think one of the things which has started happening is data is equal to numbers, and that's a big fallacy. The third piece, I think, and that's probably the most important. If I was to ask probably all married people in this room about probably the single biggest decision that they have made in their lives, it's probably who to get married. And so I know there's a large majority who is not married. Probably that's one of the big decisions that you're going to make. Yesterday night, one of my family friends called me and said, we are looking for a match for our daughter, and we've got this guy who, they have met and so on, but I want to do a sort of a reference check, and this person has studied here and has worked here. Can you find out? To my mind, that's a great example of data and intuition coming together for an important decision. And it's a combination of the two which leads to better decision making, better marketing choices. The one caveat that I would add right at the end is we have the sea of information, data, etc., etc. But it is very important to ask the right question. And what's happening as we see all this data is the fact that people are actually not spending time thinking about what is the right question. So if we are talking about in the marketing context, the decision itself is fine, but I think, is there enough thought which is going into ascertaining whether we are asking the right question or not? That's often getting lost. And probably the best example of a situation like this is you find that people would say there's a lot of data, there's probably slightly lesser information, there is lesser knowledge, and there is an alarming lack of wisdom. And to my mind, I would say intuition in the hands of somebody who's actually had the time to experience, who's had the time to think, can be a great weapon. In the hand of somebody who's just playing it like Russian roulette, is probably going to be a disaster.
Yeah. Thank you. I just have one follow-up question, which is, last year factually, and my apologies, I'm going to speak about the fast-moving consumer goods industry, and if launches, brand extensions, innovation is some measure of innovation, actually had the least number of them. And certainly compared to the year before last and year to year before last. I know that as a retailer, we track these things. Okay. Whereas on the other hand, in many facets of business, okay, it was a remarkably innovative year. Certainly e-commerce being one, but and I don't have to talk about that. And for me, this contradiction is something which I can't put a finger on, which is you have two facets of our business and society behaving very, very different. People taking exponential risks, not only with business models, but with capital which funds them. And on the other hand, you have more traditional, consumer-led industries, which had a very weak year in terms of innovation. And, take my word for it. So, is there some sense you have that perhaps once we get into a more data-driven society, we are actually suppressing innovation in more mature industries?
No, absolutely. I think that's a big risk because, ask any marketer in FMCG, and what has been happening in the new product innovation or launches, etc., is there are stories of 3% or 4% which are successful, and 96, 97% unsuccessful.
So that's always been like that.
Yeah. So I think the risk or the cost of trying out something new is becoming large. And I think exactly the point that you made, which is, the middle manager, I think that's the syndrome which is creating this. Because if you look at it, and, I myself am a product of that system, is, people who did well in school, colleges, etc., are the ones who took the least risk, right? And these are the people who actually end up and occupy important positions in business. So the natural tendency of the manager is to minimize the risk. The natural tendency of the entrepreneur is to actually maximize returns. And the two are what I think are contributing the same. So I think, for example, if you look at e-commerce, I think the reason why we have this innovation is because many of the players are still behaving like entrepreneurs and taking a set of funds, and I will say funds because it's not clear as to what's going to happen, but they are taking that, and I again.
Yeah, thank you, Abhi. So, Abhi, just to wrap up, I think you made three very good points. One is that a lot of data which we look at is post-mortem, and past is not a good predictor of what will happen in the future. The whole paradigm of data versus numbers, and the third point you made was the balance of data versus intuition-led decision making. If I can come to you, Jimmy, now, and I have a quote from you from Steve Jobs. Everybody's heard of this quote. It's very hard to design products by focus groups. A lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. I think wide awareness. This quote, of course, became very legendary because it was a very famous quote from a very highly opinionated person. Regardless of your personal objections to this statement, it is remembered a lot by many people because of the bold implications Steve Jobs made on customer feedback. And I think he was talking in context of product development and innovation. And we should look at it only from that context and no other context. He wasn't trying to say, don't listen to the customer. He was talking about it. In fact, Forbes, after he made this, went and said, this is one of the most dangerous quotes a person can make, a business leader. But regardless of that, my question to you, Jimmy, today is on the sentiments behind this quote by Steve Jobs. Okay. And I think the issue on the table here is, you compare the merits of what I called internal innovation versus the insights which can be gained from customer feedback. And the sub-context is that we are thinking about product development, service development, and with that context, I think
thank you so much, Mohit. First of all, it's really a pleasure being out here. I come from a creative background. And that too, I got into this creative background by mistake. But it's been fun, the last 21 years, really good fun. A lot of thought processes, a lot of interactivity, lots and lots of innovation. The industry I'm from is the radio industry. And I'm going to confine myself a little bit to that area. When radio actually started, I mean, there wasn't much data available. It was just, the likes and dislikes of people, the kind of music they appreciate. So how does one go about it? It was all about the gut feel, the intuition, and knowing your city. You know, normal things like understanding the city well and combining it with your intuition. So you can say, I would call it a data process. I would call it what's available there and the thought process of the past, combining it with your gut feel, which is your in entertainment, your in showbiz, the likes and dislikes of people, and then combining various areas of entertainment and coming out with a product. And trust me, the product is also not 100% right yet. So you start off a radio business with a 60% viability of what you're going to do. Understand the human mind. Very difficult. Very, very difficult. You know what radio was 10 years ago and what radio is today is a heaven and earth difference. The styles, the music, the attitudes. So that's how it started off. But as we move ahead and as we actually work towards radio is not about just great voices and music. You know, if you like listening to music, you just, you know, plug in your pen drive and listen to great music that you appreciate. So how does it work? And from my experience, it's all about innovation. It's all about hitting hard, and it's all about getting the wow factor. I'll just share some case studies. Last year, you know, it's unheard of, but how do I get you attracted towards the medium and take radio on a higher scale, other than just playing normal music or sounding great on radio? We actually built up an entire radio studio on a hoarding in the main thoroughfare of the city of Calcutta on Kampani Street. And in 10 days, we had 500,000 hits, the wow factor, the response. And this was not about doing it with data. This was doing it internally with a lot of mind thought, innovation, and gut feeling. Can we do something crazy? Every day in radio, we want to know, can we do something crazy? And that's how it comes about. At that point of time, we don't look at what data we have or what the audience wants. Our that point of time is to take the medium to a higher level in a different way. And surprisingly, the reversal comes up. And because of that particular creativity and innovation, we get a huge amount of data coming in. Because then that becomes a case study. The response of people connect with that. Now that helps us to define further innovations. You know, radio is a really funny game. We work on a lot of intuition, we work on a lot of city, we work on a lot of feelings, and we work on a lot of interactivity and connectivity. Connectivity gets us the so-called data we would like to have. On the other hand, people who buy radio, you know, I'm talking from the other side of the fence, they look at pure data. Number one, number two, the demographics, which to a large extent, you know, many a time has been very, very wrong. You know, reason why I'm saying so is, to me, a mantra, to me, a response in terms of data is my client. If he has an amazing campaign on radio, a great feedback on radio, that is my data. I will not go into a calculation of 482 people taking a diary for 90 lakh listeners and saying, hey, you are 3, 4, 5, 6. That gives us a direction. That doesn't give us a very clear focus key. This is what you should do. So for me, and for the kind of business I'm in, I'm sure for a lot of creative business, everybody is in. It is a lot of intuition, a lot of gut feel, and yes, rely a bit on data, which gives you a direction. Very, very important in our line is to be innovative, is to differentiate, is to be disruptive creatively. Otherwise, why should you listen to us? If I don't make a noise, you most probably tell me, you're playing the same music like the other station, or you're talking more. So each onto their own field basically here. And frankly, the business I'm in is a lot of intuition, a lot of innovation. Yes, with a micro percentage of data. Frankly, we as radio people don't rely too much on data unless there's a special track study because of some reason, a particular area we want to hit out to. We work on a lot of gut feel with a little bit of intuition on what the data is saying, basically. And that's the way frankly, in our type of business, it's all the mind, the attitude, and if you want to actually get into radio, we have this line, you have to be mad. Otherwise, you can't get into radio. Until you're totally bonkers, that's the kind of people we like to take. Because it's all about creativity and innovation, backed up by little data. So it would be 80% creativity and innovation to really hit out hard, to make you stop and wonder what are these guys up to. And 20% would be, okay, this is the directional area of hitting up. This is what the thought process is. This is what the demographics is. But ultimately, it's the innovation, it's the gut feel, it's the intuition.
Thank you, Jimmy. There you have it, a completely different take. I think the 2 points which came out very strongly was, one is that, at least in the context of the business you do, the model is still evolving and it evolves as you go along and you keep perfecting it. And forget innovation, being disruptive is important. Yeah. Thank you, Jimmy. I'll now turn to Nilanjan. I think more than any of us today, he is in the hot seat with the context of this topic. That's what he does for a living in IDC personal care. And, you know, what I want to put to you, Nilanjan, is something which can be looked upon to be a little, okay, let me just say it. You think customers really know what they want? And, you know, I will quote Henry Ford here. He said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have just said faster horses. Okay. And, you know, and then he, of course, founded Ford Motor Company, we know that. And, you know, sometimes customers can be terrible at predicting their future intentions when asked via survey or any such formal feedback mechanism. And that means that even though they may be responding truthfully, their future actions don't always match up to their responses. So what they say and what they do can be totally different. No matter what business is, and what is the strength of the survey method, or, you know, methods, size of sample, etc. Customers are simply just going to lie sometimes in their responses. And, you know, Nilanjan, IDC's come very late into the fast-moving consumer goods business. I think from a retail partner perspective, you've done very well. And as a consumer marketer, you know, I'd like to get your thoughts on how do you create a thriving innovation pipeline, because surely that's your job in your company, and not get bogged down by analysis paralysis.
Thank you, Mohit. Okay. Thank you for having me here. You know, I'm going to give you a bit of a perspective from a marketing functional area point of view. And I'm sure many of you who are on the throes of stepping into the corporate world would actually be faced with challenges that all of us are facing on an everyday basis. And I'm going to talk to you, taking the point that Mohit was making, into some examples of how brands and businesses are created in the area of marketing. And what are the choices and decisions which actually all of us face on an everyday basis in creating brands, creating businesses. Now, before I give you a few examples, I just want to give you a certain set of principles, which as students or as practicing managers, which all of you will want to encounter. You know, in the business of marketing and brands, building brands, there is one fundamental element called consumer insight, which you must have a great handle on. All brands which are iconic in nature have very strong insights on which they are actually propositioned. Yeah? So let's take a few examples. Consumer insights come from three areas, three and not more. The first is habits and attitudes of consumers. So what do they do? Let's take an example of any category like soaps or deodorants. Where do they use it? How many times do they have a bath? How much quantity of soap they use? How do they apply deodorants, etc., etc. This is where data comes in.
So you would actually have lots of studies, what you typically call as UNAs, users and attitudes, usership and attitude studies, where you will have a lot of data. But what you do out of that data is intuition, and I'll come to that in a minute. The second, so habits, attitudes, interests. What are consumers interested in doing? And the last is opinions. What are their fears? What are their hopes? What do they think of on an everyday basis? And all of this is not only captured by data, because a lot of consumers will not tell you what are their fears, what are their hopes, what are their aspirations. It's on these three pillars that you actually create strong brands. And what the task of a marketer is to go beyond the data, to create propositions which will actually excite consumers to come to your brands, right? Now let's take a few examples. I was in some part of my, I will talk through my sort of 2 decades of experience in largely 3 organizations, one being Benkiza, one being Hindustan Lever, and of course ITC. Have you all heard of a brand called Harpic? Yes. All of you have heard of it? Right. Harpic is a toilet cleaner. Right. About a decade ago, this brand was roughly about 25 crores in size and growing at roughly about 5%, which is going nowhere. It was actually a brand which did nothing, right? So I was tasked with the brand, saying, why don't you create? So the data said that the market, the usership of toilet cleaners, branded toilet cleaners, was 6% in urban India. So 94% of consumers actually used detergents, or phenyls, whatever else have you, to actually clean their toilets. And when you went and asked consumers, what did you think of their toilet? What did she think about her toilet? You know what the answer was? It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Will I use this brand? Harpic, have you heard of it? It's an expensive brand. I've heard of it. I don't. So this is the situation you're faced with, and it's not a very uncommon situation. So you're in a situation where you want to create category penetration, and create brand penetration. So what I did, and the team along with me, all of us did, was to actually challenge accepted consumer belief. And that's, so the data said what I said. Yeah. What was the accepted consumer belief? That toilets were clean. Every consumer believed that the toilets were clean. So we said, listen, we will challenge that belief because we have superior product performance. Why did we believe that? Data told us that over 90% of the Indian market was hard water. Hard water is where you have, limescale deposits and organic deposits in the toilets. So effectively, the consumer may think that it is clean, but the fact is it was not. So we created this campaign called the Doorstep Challenge campaign. Yeah, way back in 2002, where we had a mini celebrity who comes into a house, knocks the door, asks the consumer, have you, what do you use? I use detergents, etc. Have you even heard of this brand? Seen this brand? Yeah, I have. Have you even used it? And no, I haven't. Why don't you try and see? Ugly ads, really ugly stuff. And what's bad? What's worse was actually it was coming when you were having dinner most of the time. So this was, and I dare not test that ad with any testing methodology because it's going to fail. And what's more, I was part of a global company. So Benkiza Global said, hello, what are you going to do? Is this something that we want to put our money into? But supported by intuition, supported by a fairly supportive top management, at least in the country, I took the decision, me and my team, we took the decision to start that campaign called the Doorstep Challenge. And the rest, honestly, is history. It's history. In India, the brand today, and I can only quote from Nielsen figures and no longer, the company is roughly about 650 crores. Nothing much has changed. Doorstep Challenge is now a global success model for Benkiza in all developing markets worldwide. Wherever there is hard water, they use this model with remarkable results. So I think as a marketer, the understanding of consumer beliefs, and habits and attitudes will lead to actions which will create. The other example closer home is a brand called Engage. Have you heard of it? In the deodorants market, right? So if you all are some of you users of deodorants, right? What do you think defines category codes in deodorants? Sorry? Long lasting. But if you look at other than the functional attributes, you have attraction. Right? The whole segment is diffused. There is a functional need for protection against bad odor, long lasting sustainability in terms of fragrances. But the other area and key category driver is looking and feeling good, and it is all about attraction. Now, if you look at the market so far, what were the category drivers in the area of attraction? Sorry? Axe students, yes. Some of the brands you're talking about, yes, is Axe and Whitestone, Lynx, and so on and so forth. But what was uniform in all of those is unabashed one-way attraction. Right? It was unabashed one-way attraction where either the woman is the game, or the man is and the man is chasing the woman, and the woman is chasing the man, whichever way it is. It's a one-way attraction. Now, we said, if we want to come into this market, should we launch another deodorant which also chases girls? Right. Okay, the chase must be faster. But do you think consumers will switch? Do you think they will? I don't think so. The answer is no, they will not. There are a few semiotic code studies. We did a bit of Hofstede's work, we did some other work with understanding subliminal behaviors. And we understood, and about this time we were also understanding from the deodorant market and studies that this positioning of one-way attraction is probably beginning to lose steam. So we put our bets on equality of relationship between man and woman, which was unheard of in the deodorants market. So we put all our bets into what we called as playful chemistry between two consenting adults, as opposed to a man transforming from an ordinary Joe to a chick magnet, right? And therefore getting women along the stride, and you keep counting women and saying, okay, I've got 200, how many? Right? So we said, none of this is going to work. So we have put our bets into creating this brand called Engage in the space of playful chemistry. Again, we have taken an intuitive judgment on the basis of data. And I'm sure you must have seen some of our executions. They are not erotic. They are not pushing anything which is gross. They are in the area of sexual chemistry. It's in the area of equality. It's in the area of chemistry. Yeah? And I'm absolutely delighted to share with all of you. And of course, this is one element of the mix, which is proposition and its execution. But the choice of fragrances, the design of what we have done in terms of the packaging mix, etc., all of that has actually played a great part. It's outstanding. But the fact is, in 18 months from launch, in modern trade, of which Mohit, of course, is a key partner, 2 months ago we were the #1 player. We were #1 in the market. So there are vicissitudes of certain discounting, cycles, all of that happens. But the fact is, we have come in from behind. We've come in from a zero share to become the #1 player in modern trade. Yeah? And we're actually the #2 player on India. And all of this, guys, is very simple. Intuitive judgment starts where data stops. And unless managers develop the capability of intuitive judgment, I don't think you will be able to see success. Yeah? So the greatest managers, the greatest leaders are all great intuitive leaders. The corner room is an empty, isolated room at the end of the day. You're only at the top. And with those words, I want to encourage all of you here in this room to back your judgment to the hilt, because I think only then you'll be able to taste the joy of success.
Thank you, Aditya. I think you contextualized our topic today very well, and could have said it. Intuitive judgment starts where data stops. Thank you very much, and for sharing those examples. Lastly, I'll turn to Aditya, and by no means the least, again somebody from the creative field with some remarkable success in his career. Aditya, I'd like to share some thoughts with you via presentation, and then we'll get into a discussion. So if you can have this presentation on this.
Okay, so before I get into the presentation, I'll probably be the only guy to bore you with this kind of stuff. I wish I could just make this a simple talk, but I was going to prepare a presentation, so I'll do that. Unfortunately, the field that I come from, which is the movie business, doesn't have the luxury of time. We don't have the ability of 18 months after a product is launched to decide how to tweak a campaign. Once a product is launched, can we look at data and see how people are accepting it and then move it around? You have to get it right the first time, and that's the main thing in the business that we're in. So what I'll do is I'll take you through who we are, what we do, and just to give you a sense, I know they introduced me as somebody who looks after D for you, but right now the studio that I work with is a studio called Relativity, and Relativity is a studio in the US that is run by a financial hedge fund manager. And if anybody knows what a financial hedge fund manager does, is that he looks at data all the time. So I'm going to figure out how to take this forward. So I have to stick it. Yeah. Okay, so what does Relativity do? We're in the business of films, television, fashion, digital, and video sports. There is a common theme across all of these. Every one of them doesn't have a second opportunity. You have to get it right the first time. If you don't get it right the first time, it's sunk. You never really have the chance to relaunch the product, as in the consumer product space. Because we're run by Ryan Kavanagh, who ran a very successful hedge fund and has funded a lot of films in the past, he created an in-house algorithm that decided whether a film will work or not. We have an in-house algorithm, the numbers are put into the system, people sit and run this all the time. All the decision makers, unlike other studios, are not fancy guys who sit in corner offices, but it's like going to a bank and you have a business manager ahead of you and he runs a whole series of numbers. The algorithm will not only decide whether a film will be a success or not, it will also decide which part of the film should be released. And so it will tell you what kind of returns you get if you release at what point in time. I'm going to race through this presentation because about 8 slides, so if there's something that you don't get, you can ask me what you want. Now, it's unheard of in the movie business to have a studio that actually uses an algorithm. Usually, most studios use a film star or they use a director and say, you know what, this guy's given a hit in the past, so let's back him. This director's given a hit in the past, let's back him. Or let's buy this really successful franchise or a book and let's make that. So using an algorithm was really the startup-making idea that Ryan brought into the business. And there's lots and lots of data crunching. Every piece of numbers crunched in. Will it go to Latinos? Will it go to blacks? Will it go to whites? Will it go to New York? Will it go to Europe? It's just extensive data crunching. These are the films that Relativity is done. All of them are films that you know. All of them are hugely successful. So to give you an example, Relativity decided to pursue a film called Catfish. This was, how many of you watch MTV and VH1? Okay. So Catfish was a concept about internet dating and finding people, and was young people telling stories about their lives, and we decided to back this product. And so Relativity ran the numbers, and they put it into the system. The algorithm pulled out a number, we did everything that was required to be done, and the numbers said the film would fail. And like the numbers said, the film released, it was an unmitigated disaster. It just didn't work. The algorithm was right. It just bang on. It said the film's not going to work. Don't put it on this day. We went ahead. It was a huge disaster. We burned lots of money at the box office. But the decision to make Catfish was not based on the numbers. It was based on the fact that we genuinely felt that there were young people out there who are trying to build relationships in this socially dysfunctional world that we're living in, where we spend more time on our cell phones and we spend with people of the opposite sex, despite using Engage or not. So what we thought was people want to do this. We put this film out. It hasn't worked at the box office, but we've got great data. I mean, we have people who've seen the film. We know whether they like Coke or they like Diet Coke, they like popcorn. What is the age group? We've got the most extensive data that we've had with us on our hands. We still believe the concept works. Okay, it didn't work as a film. So we took that data and made, I mean, we had the most expensive television pilot in the world. And we put Catfish as a TV show. Because we had the data, we had the concept, we believed in the concept, it was something that's going to work. And Catfish went out and became the #1 rated cable show in 2012. It still continues to deliver huge numbers on television. And all of our money on the film business that we lost, putting out Catfish, was more than recovered on the TV show. Why did I bring up this example? It kind of, look at it, I mean, the algorithm was right. So finally, at the end of the day, the finance guy that you work with says this is not going to work, chances are it's not going to work. But if you believe in something really strongly enough and you want to make it work, you're not going to be given more than 2 or 3 opportunities in your career to back your gut feel. Trust me, 2 times you get it wrong, you're out. There's no third strike. Back your gut feel on things that you don't have a loss on. So, for example, if you're in the product category, you see an ad, you think that ad works. Do the numbers by yourself, independent of whether you're working in the company or not, to see where the market share is on of that company. Back it and build intuitive judgment internally. There's no school that teaches you that. Very few schools will teach you intuitive judgment. You will not be able to find something and say, pick that intuition. So, in the movie business, what we encourage people to do is look at a campaign and say whether the film is going to work or not work at the box office, and do that repeatedly for maybe a year, and then you probably get your gut feel right. In other businesses, you probably look at a campaign and see that works or not, look at a product category and see that works or not. That's what you should be doing. It's not part of the curriculum. Nobody's going to teach it to you, but use gut feel. That's probably the only thing I can tell you about this. That's pretty much the story that I want to tell you about this Catfish. But I'll give you a story that's close to home and that kind of worked with me. Many years ago, I was running a company called UTV Motion Pictures. And at that point in time, UTV was considered a financier of movies. We were never really concerned with inside people. And I'm talking about 2004, when the big studios were Yash Chopra and Karan Johar. And movie making was the Gurukul system. Master taught his disciple. And here were these bunch of guys who came from somewhere and were trying to understand the movie business. We got into a film where every one of the characters in the film died at the end of the film. Every single one of them died. Everybody said, guys, the hero dies. I'm not going to take names, but I pitched the role to an actor and he came and told me, you know what, dude, everybody dies, good luck with the film, I'm not doing it. So for want of a better word, we had just one guy who believed in the film. And every other actor was somebody that we pick new. In fact, I couldn't even get an actor to play a role in the film, so I had to go to Andhra Pradesh and cast a Telugu star to play a role in the film. So I had a Telugu star, I had a Tamil star, and I had one big star on the film. That film, if it didn't work, it would have burnt the company down and the company would shut down. We were just going public, we didn't have enough money, we had burnt the candle at both ends, and we went out of the film, and we made the film where every single actor died at the end of the film. We had a screening in the film, and the television division of the company got up and walked out and thought they were not going to get salaries the next month. A couple of the directors left, and I had the promoter of the company come and tell me, you know what, just sell the film, forget it, don't just keep it in your hands, sell it, just make sure that everybody buys the film, don't show it to anybody, just sell the film. And we had other challenges. We had the Indian Air Force coming after us and saying, you can't show a film like this, and whatever. But Rangi Basanti released and it went on to deliver huge numbers in the box office. So the perspective I'm coming from is data works really, really well. But this is, some of us are going to be data driven, some of us are going to be intuitively driven. And that's left brain, right brain. Some of us are blessed with some other stuff, some of us are blessed with other stuff. So use that perspective. If you are better off at numbers, it's great. If you're better off at any decision making, that's even better for you. But like Niranjan said, intuitive decision making starts where it is. All right, thank you.
Thanks for that, Aditya. Fascinating. I knew algorithms are being used to write books, but I didn't know about movies. That's a new one. In fact, I have a quote for you from a guy called Scott Brinker. So he is the CEO of Ion Interactive. Okay, and he said this publicly. And it goes against the grain of this. Algorithms are great at optimization, but terrible at imagination. Somebody still has to think of the script. So, I think the follow-up question I'll have for you today is very different from what I thought I'll ask you in context of what you said. How does this work for talent? I'm looking at the kind of field you're from, which is, and of course with the Indian subcontext, people with a lot of ideas on what formula works at the box office, how to make a film, what genre works, etc. And then you have this algorithm-driven model. So how does this work for you from a talent perspective? In one of them works.
So just so that I get the question right, you meant talent as an
How do you get them to work for environment like this?
Okay, unfortunately, India, the movie piece in India over the last 1 decade has been data driven. So a Salman Khan film has delivered 120 crores at the box office, so went back in and increased the prices by 20% and we get 150 crores. So I think all of the decision making has been left into the hands of talent that actually drive the box office. So to get a new film to come in and new talent to come in is going to be very, very difficult. America had the same, sorry, but I'm going to give a long-winded answer if that's okay with you. Yeah. America had the same problem and continues to face the same problem for the last 25 years. They had no real heroes to look up to. The last known heroes were Ronald Reagan, and before that John F. Kennedy, and maybe a couple of Carl Lewis. They really didn't have, which is why you had this overdose of Iron Man, Spider-Man, Superman, and Batman. They don't have heroes in their lives, which is why they did that. India had the same problem for the last 15 years. I'm not making political comment, but India has the same problem for the last 15 years. And which is why you've had heroes, but the heroes are not called Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, but they're called the Adventures of Salman Khan as the bomb, the Adventures of Salman Khan as Wanted, the Adventures of Salman Khan as a bodyguard, or the Adventures of Rajinikanth as Linga, or the Adventures of Rajinikanth as Shivaji. It's pretty much going to the cinema hall and feeling good about yourself because a guy portrays an image that works for you. I think that changed, and something desperately changed very quickly and very badly in the last 3 months. So you're going to find these huge, big blockbusters that did lots of business 1 year ago, not delivering the same. To give you an example, Ajay Devgan delivered a film a couple of weeks ago called Action Jackson, directed by Prabhu Deva, starring Ajay Devgan, who's a reasonably big star, starring Sonakshi Sinha. 1 year ago, Prabhu Deva did the same film with a slightly smaller star, Shahid Kapoor, and Sonakshi Sinha, and directed by Prabhu Deva again, called R. Rajkumar. That film did 100 crore at the box office. This current film will struggle to reach 55 to 60, despite Ajay Devgan being a big star. So all of y'all and all of the movie-going audiences are feeling great about themselves anyway. They are not really looking to go to the cinema to get inspired or to feel great or whatever. So we're feeling great about a cricket team, we're feeling great about a hockey team, we're feeling great about India. It's going to last for maybe a year unless something desperately goes wrong. So talent to do stuff usually means pay them money and
You use words like unfortunate. Fascinating. Okay, I think from a panelist perspective, that's what we have today. And what we do now is give you an opportunity to ask questions and interact. I have only 2 brief rules to the game, which is that please state your name and what you do, and go straight to the question. Your opinions, can be part of the question, but try and keep it brief. We want to hear the questions, please.
I'm Dr.
The gentleman over there, I think you need to just give a mic at the back.
Hi. I'm Dr. Ghosh, and Professor of Marketing. I have two questions. Okay. The first one is informational, and second one is, I'll let you know this thing on my mention it. The first one, you said you had a challenge for a story for something, or did I get it wrong? For the movie Ram De Basanti. You see, I thought you said there was some challenge in coming up with a story that was acceptable to the heroes and things like that.
Yeah.
So was that an original story in the first place? That's from All My Sons from 1948 and Jesus of Montreal. So does intuition mean borrowing Western ideas and pushing it into a market that people are not aware of it?
Well, let me give you an example. I think the challenge of getting actors to was the actors that were talking about was Akshay Kumar. So they were going to talk about his mother was good. We wanted to play the NIG pilot of my. Okay, so the challenge of the film was when we had to put together the song.
And it's partial.
Okay. So the challenge that we had was, it wasn't so much about adapting a story or taking a story that appears at two points in time. I think the challenge was to get a lead Indian actor to play a role that meant that he died in the role. So we approached Akshay Kumar, who's a dear friend of mine, and I told him to play the role of Madhavan, whose death actually inspired these young kids to do or take on something else. And he didn't think the film was going to work. Forget about his role. He said, you know what, good luck and thank you, but I'm not doing it. So sometimes the data-driven perspective is that if I've died in the film and everybody's going to die in the film, who the hell wants to see the movie? Everybody wants to see these big entertainers. Everybody wants to see films where people laugh and have a great time. Why do you want to make a movie where somebody dies? That was the perspective. So it was a challenge, which is why I had to get Madhavan to play the role. In fact, to play Bhagat Singh's role, I had to get Siddharth from like a Telugu star to play the role. I couldn't get an actor from it. I couldn't.
But thanks to you, whatever you do, we enjoy it when we live abroad. Okay.
Despite the inspiration from the people.
Yeah, that's okay. The second question is the important one. Okay. I heard last night that within a week or two, the students over here are going to go up for interviews for placement. And this question is for all of you. Now, it's nice to be bold, nice to go against the grain. You want to hire people who want to break the norm. But is it safe for the students to go and say that in the first interview? Or should they say, no, we will do things according to tradition?
Okay, so maybe Mohit was taking, but I'll tell you what I would do. I would look at the guy asking the question and see if he's typically traditionally dressed and traditionally behaved, and the question comes in traditional fashion. And if that's the case, then I would say I will follow the mold and do whatever is required to be done by the book. But if he is in a pair of shorts and t-shirt, I will take the mold.
So the first question is addressed to Mr. Shastri. Could you give us details of this algorithms? What are the components that go into this algorithm? What are the questions that you're asking? How do you give the weightage, and how would you build up that algorithm for determining the success of the film? And the second question is you can answer that. I'll ask the second one after that. Mr. Singh. Yeah, this algorithm one is addressed to you.
Okay, so the algorithm is actually proprietary information to Relativity Studio. We don't share data around. But the truth is, the analysis that is done is based on box office trends of similar genre films, box office trends on who specific characters in the film. So there are 23 variables that are put into the overall casting and director, which are mapped across previous data that is done. I know it's putting on the rearview window and driving forward, but that's what the algorithm does. It analyzes things right down to what words are spoken in the dialogue. So you have dialogue picking up you have the kind of clothes people wear, and in fact, even the product placement in the film is also analyzed in the algorithm that goes in. So you analyze the story, you analyze the actors and the previous box office performances, you analyze directors and what they've done in the past before, and you also analyze basic data down to who said what to whom, in what context, and of course which socio-economic class in the United States of America. So most of the algorithm data is driven out of the US, but like you would have seen relativity films, they deliver about 70% of their box office from the US itself.
Thank you. Then Mr. Mohit Kampani and the gentleman from Mr. Singhi stated that the past is not a good indicator of the future, right? That may be, it may not be 100% good indicator, but it is certainly, as you stand today with the existing information that you have to make a decision. It would be, say, relative a 75% of a good indicator. So isn't it advisable? I mean, what is your take on that? It may not be, the change is happening rapidly, right? But it's not so rapid that the past has no relevance at all. You have to look at the past and then look at the future with your own mature judgment, right?
Yeah, so the way I would put it is that you learn from the past, but you plan for the future. And you know, the way we look at this in our business is we actually have a name for this, which is called post-mortem analytics. And they do serve a purpose, okay? And that purpose is that you learn from your mistakes or the impact of your decisions in the past. And you ensure that you don't repeat them in the future. Every time you run a promotion, you know, it must have a stated objective in our business. And what has been an impact, whether it met those objectives, you must learn from that so that you better it or you don't repeat that mistake in the future. So I don't know about 75 or 25 or percentages like that. But I think increasingly we are trying to spend a lot of time in planning for the future more and more than dwelling on the past. And perhaps it's because our industry is young and it's emerging, and you know we don't have many years of empirical data to dwell upon. And I think that's a good thing, because I think at some point it does stifle innovation and risk taking. So I would balance more on my team's efforts on planning for the future.
So I would just make 2 points. Number one, I think in the absence of any data, there is some data which is useful. I think the perspective is very different by type of industry. So, you know, if you are in the e-commerce world, for example, last year's data or 2-year-old data is useless. If you're in the FMCG industry, 2-year-old data is very useful. So I think that is one. The second, and I think that's the more important part in my mind, is because we have a lot of historical data, there is a tendency to say, I have lots of data. We should just recognize that it comes with some limitation. And I'm reminded of, you know, an old Birbal Akbar tale, which, you know, there was this guy that Birbal saw searching for a ring under a tree at night, and he said, यहाँ पे क्यों क्या ढूंढ रहे हो? मेरी अंगूठी गिर गई है. मेरी अंगूठी कहाँ गिरी? तो अंगूठी वहाँ गिरी. तो आप यहाँ क्यों ढूंढ रहे हैं? तो यहाँ पे light है. So I mean, we should just try to avoid that situation.
No, I think we'll have time for 1 or 2 more questions, and then we will, yeah, the lady over there. I'll come to you, sir.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Rachel Mehta from Ahmedabad University. My question is for Mr. Jimmy Langley. Sir, you mentioned that a lot of the decisions or plans that you make are more intuitive, and you would rather that you be as destructive as possible. So I have 2 perspectives. One, we might probably be kind of destructive when we think of it from the listener's point of view, because depending on the kind of program that is aired at whatever time, the listeners are going to be different. So maybe in the afternoons you can be more intuitive, or in the evenings you can be, or in the night when you have maybe the whole genre of songs playing, maybe you can be less intuitive, I don't know. That's one side of it. And second side is if I'm a marketer who looks to buy some airspace, then do I not ask you for any data? So how is that? How do you look at that combination?
You know, I gave an example.
Yeah.
Firstly, I said when we take decisions on a little bit of intuition,
right,
understanding the city. And when the marketers take decision, they take decision on the data they're supplied with in terms of demographics, in terms of reach, in terms of, what are the numbers, basically. So it's a two-way process. For us, it is more of the city, more of understanding the city. And what we do is, along with the data, which the consumer or the marketer comes to us, we design and we create show and we also advise accordingly. So it's a two-way process. It's not from our point of view, which is intuition. It is understanding the city, as I said, 20% data and 80% intuition. Because till I try something out on radio, till I create that space, I'm never going to be understanding the listener. It changes. 10 years ago, what radio was, what radio used to play, 10 years today, radio is different. Understanding, and that's where the engagement mode comes about. But from the marketer's point of view, he'll definitely rely on a lot of data available to him. And on top of it, it's not just the data, it's how we creatively innovate on air to engage that product, not necessarily the deodorant, but generally engage that product and hear it out hard. It's ultimately not a voice, it's not just music, it's what we call imagery transfer. I can make you cry, I can make you laugh, I can get you excited, I can actually make you want what we are talking about, how we are engaging. And that's what is the difference. From a marketer's point of view, he looks at data, comes to us. We also work behind and we give suggestions. And from our point of view, we work a lot on intuition, gut feel, the city, the styles, and our engagement with the listeners.
Just in connection, I think some question for Aditya Shastri sir as well. In radio, it may be a little easier. Something doesn't work, एक महीने बाद थोड़ा change कर दिया. But in a movie, it probably wouldn't work like that. So, what is your take on it? Any comments?
Yeah, so we seem to share the same kind of urgency in our communication that only one other industry has, and that's the industry that does IPOs. You have to get it right on that Friday, and for those 3 days. And if it doesn't work on the communication of those 3 days, so you don't have the luxury of coming back again. So the truth is that the marketers in the movie today, who not necessarily make the film, are as important, or in fact more important than people actually make the film. So sometimes, when the market is able to create that urgency to deliver an opening, that pretty much makes the film. So what works for us is data processes to understand where is the maximum reach and make the media buying some data driven, but the message is usually intuitive. So if you look at Amir today, for this film that's releasing this Friday, the communication is completely unlike a regular film. It's a guy wearing a sari and a blazer. You would never imagine Salman Khan ever doing that or never acted. So his communication, that piece is intuitive. The fact that he's bought it on headlines today or NDTV 24/7 is data.
So just one final question. These algorithms that you talked about, they will be different for different markets. So is the Indian market any very different from an international market?
Okay, so the algorithm that Untitled uses is only based on North America, which is Canada and the United States. It's only based on that, and it is specifically deep dive granular to the target audience that the perception that the film is going to go to. So if you're making a film with for want of a better word, African American lead star, it will target that analysis deeper. So that's how they do it. India, I don't think we have the ability to take that algorithm and apply it here, but we will do that maybe over the next 5 years.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Myself, Dr. Subrata Bhadri from Heritage Business School. I would like to ask one question to Mr. Aditya Mukherjee, because it is the heartbeat story. The particular advertisement which used to come in this TV, and especially for our fixed times, as you have mentioned, during this lunch hour or dinner hour. According to user, what is your opinion that it was a successful or right timing for that particular ad? Is it intentionally made during those hours, or it is just some sort of an blending of these two?
I'm going to give you this answer from the perspective of not only a brand, but just from the perspective of media planning. Normally, media is planned on the basis of reach and frequency, and the secondary perspective is impact. So we identify a certain target audience, and we try to reach that target audience a certain number of times during the day or the month. And in some instances, we identify what are impact buys, which are certain high TBR programs where we sort of want our presence. So we've done that successfully in many of our brands, and therefore, whenever you see some high visibility, it means there's some very good media planning which is got behind it. To give you a recent case in point is, in fact, the brand again that I was talking to you about was NH. We had such high, sharp definition of our target audience that we did not even choose Hindi GDC when we started our campaign. And interestingly enough, our spontaneous awareness levels and recall levels and visibility levels have also been very, very high. So the answer to your question is more media planning with respect to the target audience that you have in mind, the objectives that you want to serve. And that determines the choices you make, whether it's in TV or not.
And the other part is that since you mentioned about this impact of the particular media plan and the strategy part of that thing, so far as my knowledge is concerned, that you were a sort of a rigorous also at that particular time when that particular stuff was just entering into the Indian market, eating for the best, germ-free environment in the bath or the washroom. Now the thing is that in our family or in our peer group, the first reaction was, no, just stop it, switch on. And again, there was a thinking that yes, this might be particular, interest to generate. That is what we are given. Otherwise, this normal sequence is that in the morning hours, this toilet or the bath, this is being washed. So just this diametrically opposite situation, they are fixing it just to, motivate, demotivate, whatever you may say, but creating some sort of ripples in the mind of the people. And that is precisely the particular point from where we started. Also, this is quite interesting, just to buy and see how it really works. The timing and all those things are like that. So,
I think just to give you a perspective on that, fundamentally, strong brands polarize, right? So we would want, whenever you can understand the sentiments of creation of strong franchises, when people have a view about it, either ways, whether it's one side or the other, but certainly it should polarize. And I think all the brands that we have created, whether it's in ITC or in many other brands in many other organizations, they do polarize. And those examples that we spoke about. The other question to answer, and that is a question that all of us as consumers and as practicing marketers should look at, is if I were to take away the brand from the consumer's life, will you miss something? If the answer to that question is a yes, it means that the brand is strong. Yeah.
We just take the last question if there's any.
Yes, sir. Hi, sir. I'm Sigdo. I'm a first year student in Ireland. So it's not a really question. I just want to make a comment and I would like to take opinions on that. So my question is why we use data mostly to mitigate risks, because no one wants to drown their money. So now recently we were undergoing a marketing project and we had to come up with a new product. So now for a new product, if it is a breakthrough product, you don't have any data available. If you have something which is an improvement towards an existing product, you might use data. So I had a business idea which stated that, okay, right now the problem that we are having, the sound is messed up. So if this category in India is a totally unbranded category, huge market. So this was my idea, and my team members, I couldn't substantiate that with a lot of data, and they did not agree. So I don't know, when you develop new products, what is your take on that, and how do you, come up with intuitive judgments and do not back it up with data, and how do you take a call on such kind of decisions?
I'll paraphrase what Nilanjan said, and I think from a consumer marketer perspective, and he can add on if he wishes to. I think the word which we try to communicate today is that if you can use data to deliver insights and use that for innovation, you've got the best of both the worlds going. And he gave us an excellent example of how he used insights about the bathroom being clean when it was actually not very clean, and he used that insight to convert it into a huge opportunity. So you must use data, must not get paralyzed by it, and find ways to get the insights onto what shoppers are trying to tell you or consumers are trying to tell you. From our perspective, shoppers; from his perspective, more consumers. And there is a difference between the two. But even essentially, it's about getting insights.
Absolutely well put, Mohit. I think just to add to one point on that, we are in the business just about 6-7 years into the FMCG market, which has been about 100 years in existence. So when we want to come in and create, and all that we have created in ITC did not exist, let's say 6 years ago. So there was no Fiamma, there was no Milan, there was no Engage. So this is a challenge that we are faced every day. So if we have to enter a market, we create everything from scratch. So let me give you an example. In the soaps business, which is a good more than 100 years old, category penetrations are 100%. But what does it mean? That everybody is used to soap, so at least once a year. Frequency of usage is very high. So how do you come and create something which is new? Again, I think the point on insights comes in. And what we understood in the premium market was that consumers like the use of a shower gel, because it's an exhilarating bath. It's fantastic. Sensorily, it's a great delight. From a skin feel perspective, it's outstanding. But the fact of the matter is, only 5% or 10% of consumers have shower baths. Everybody is used to a bath because many of them have bucket baths. So that was what gave us the seed of a product insight. And we've actually put a shower gel into a form of a soap bar called Fiamma Gel Bar. And that has captured 6% of the premium soap market, the market that WPS operates. So I think it's about, again, making insights come to play, whether it's in communication, propositioning, or product development. That will actually make a big difference.
I think we'll end the session on that. Thank you for being a wonderful participative audience. We've overrun the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for making this panel discussion such an insightful and interactive one. But before closing off this session, it is our responsibility to felicitate our esteemed panelists on the dais with tokens of appreciation. I would now request Dr. Nag, Dean Academics, IMI Kolkata, to please come on stage and do the honors. Mr. Abhik Singh, Mr. Himanshi Mukherjee, Mr. Mohit Kampani, Mr. Judgement, Mr. Aditya Shastri. I would now request Dr. Nag to end this session with a vote of thanks.
It's a great pleasure for me to propose this vote of thanks. I would like to thank Mr. Mohit Kampani for focusing on the discussion between the challenge of balance between the left and right brain. I would like to thank the panelists for spending their extremely valuable time at IMI Kolkata. We hope that there is a lot of more such playful chemistry between them and IMI Kolkata. I would like to thank all the participants, and I mean many of the participants in this conference have come from outside Kolkata for being here with us. I would like to thank all our students. Many of them are greatly benefited by this panel discussion. Our director, Dr. Arindam Malik, has been adding light to us for organizing this panel discussion. Dr. Mohit Banerjee and Dr. Mritupanna Basu, they have put this panel discussion in place together. It is beyond me to thank them. I thank all the other faculty members and all the members of the staff who have worked relentlessly for making this conference a success. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, lunch is already been prepared. The guest support team will help you go down to the cafeteria where we will serve the lunch.
Ma'am, are you the one who asked the question? Ma'am, can I get your name?
I'm Dr. Bijal Bijal, B-I-J-L, Mehta, from Ahmedabad University.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lunch will be followed by a plenary session by Dr. Preeti Malula. Please accelerate for that after lunch. The session will be in 104. The plenary session will be room number 101. Everyone, please select in 101 after this session for the plenary session.
Hey Manish. बताता ना एल्गोरिथम का algorithm has nothing to do with पैदल जाके चल के जा रहा था लेकिन
ক্যান্সেলেশন ধরো তোমার সম্পর্কের মধ্যে যদি ক্যান্সেলেশন হয় না তুমি আর জিজ্ঞেস থেকে পারো কোনো রকম ঠিক আছে
এখানে কোন শেষ নেই হ্যাঁ এখানে আর কিছু নেই বলো মনে হচ্ছে কিছু নেই একটা ক্লাস নেই
बोलिए सर क्या खबर
বলেন
আমি খবর
তোরা এখন এরকম বলে না মানে বলে দেবো না
এই সিরিজ করবো
হ্যাঁ একটা নিয়ে নেবো
একটা কেন যদি খবর নিয়ে আসি
একটা নেই
সেটা সেদিন সাধারণ করলো তুমি আগে দেখা দেবো এটা কি হবে
তুমি বসে তো সে খেয়েছে
নেবো কি
খা আমি খাবো তুমি এটা সাবধানটা করে দাও তোমার এটা বসে দিবি হ্যাঁ একটা হয়ে গেছে আমার হবে না তোমরা সাবধানটা করে দিয়ে করতে এই
বলছি বলছি
ক্লাসরুমের দিকে সিকিউর চালিয়ে দিও
হ্যাঁ চলছে এখন চলছে না
আমি এদিকে যাইনি এখন এদিকে প্রোগ্রাম আছে
স্বাধীন করে ভাই
মানে
অপশন কি আছে
আছে তো আবার
কি ছিল বলছি সুবিধা করে দিতে
আর কিছু নেই তো
ওটা বন্ধ করে ওটা বন্ধ করে
নিচে শুয়ে আছে
একটু উপরে লাল সাদা সুতো লাল উপরটা ওই উপরে উপরে ওই ওদিকে
এইটা
ভিতরে উপরে থাকে ভিতরে উপরে থাকে
এটা তো অফ করতে হবে এটা
না ওটা
না না ঠিক না
ওটা ল্যাপটপ
ঠিক আছে এইটা আগে অফ করে তারপরে অফ করা দরকার
কোনটা
এখানে অন অফ যেহেতু লেখা আছে তা
ওই পানা সুইচটা
হ্যাঁ
ওটা তো ল্যাপটপে লাইট দেওয়ার জন্য
হ্যাঁ সেটা ঠিক আছে এই যে ডিসপ্লেটা আছে এখান থেকে অন অফ হয় এটা এটা অফ করো তারপরে
ধরে পাগলা আমরা মরবার পরে কোথায় জায়গা সুইচটার পাশে
এই যে ডিসপ্লেটা এটা এই দুটোতে অন অফ হয় এটা অফ করো ওটা তো মেন পাওয়ার এখানে এসে অফ করে দিলে এটা অফ হয়ে যাবে কিন্তু মেন
ওটা অফ করে না
করে না কিন্তু করা দরকার এটা চাবি কোনটা মানে
মোদিন এই সুইচটা না সেভাবে করা হয় এটা
ল্যাপটপ কি বললাম
বাজার বললো আবার আছে মনে হয় নাকি দিচ্ছে না
খাওয়া দাওয়া খাবেন এখন 100 এখন 100 দিয়ে প্রোগ্রাম তারপর সে
ও মানে কি আরেকজন আসবে
হ্যাঁ কালকে কালকে আসবে না বন্ধ করে দেন বললে চালিয়ে তোমার লাইট জ্বলছে
লাইট জ্বলছে লক করতে না দিয়ে
তুই চলছে না বন্ধ করে দিয়েছে
বন্ধু শুনবি না পাওয়ারটা খুলে নাও না থাকবে
ভাই